вещи с тобой говорим. Я тебе про, да, да. Про то, что, ну да. То есть синтез искусств, когда тебе по-любому надо будет что-то там. То есть все равно, да, да, да. Ну, другая там тема вообще, просто другая, да. Ну да, да, да. Я не про это, я тебе говорю, что вот она музыка. Вот она честная, без всяких названий, без всяких втирательств, там, без этих, потому что она придается только тем, кто, то есть, как бы она не настоящая, да, обусловленная, как вот объяснить, да. Я понял, да. То есть тебе даже, да, впечатление только будет от того образа, который сказал теория Берлага, это там сказал, да. А самой музыки там ничего нету, потому что, да, просто, то есть музыки-то нету, то есть, понимает, да. Ну, понимает, да, да. Ну, да, да, да. Ну, так оно и есть, то есть, хочешь сказать. Ну, хорошо, ладно, пусть даже так. Тем более важно это выяснить. Значит, ты просто как бы создаешь некий такой, это самое, да, ну, функция исполнителя. Да, то есть как бы по-любому, короче, здесь он идет, да. Да. Там есть какие-то моменты, да. Да. Помимо даже, да. Все это хорошо. Да, да. Гипотетически так, но надо знать, как. Ладно, ладно, ушел уже. Да, по себе уже. Да, 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 вот это. Постижение себя, да, понимает, он на себе так обидно, что мне денег нет, обидно, ладно, не обидно, ладно, нормально. Не знаю, это слишком смело так сказать, что они слепшие. Я понял, да. Нет, 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 нет. Я говорю так, да. интересно, она не согласна, значит. Не ты говоришь уже, просто ему говоришь. Начало жизни, реабилитировал всю музыку, понимаешь, в глазах человека, потребителя. Да, то есть как бы просто нормального человека, как бы. Да, понимаю, да. Спасение. Ну, ты понял же, на самом деле. Да, понял. Да. То есть это вранье уже надоело очкастое слушать, бред просто. У меня комплекс неполноценности из-за этого, понимаешь? Они какую-то херню там не понимают. Ну, я понял уже, да. Не только у меня, наверное, да. Ну, ты понял уже. Ну, да. Ну, не знаю, смотрите сами. Да. Я ничего тебе не говорю. Я говорю, что за этим всем легко скрыться и деньги от Путина получать. Ну, неважно, это долгий разговор просто уже, понимаешь, да. Да. Это ничего не отменяет. Это реабилитирует только, да. Наоборот, все отменяет, конечно, все отменяет. Ну да, понял. Ну нет, я имею в виду, что ну не играйте все эти сонаты симфонии никому не нужны. Их надо играть, чтобы вообще никто не знал, что это такое. Понимаешь? Музыка, ну да, она нафиг не нужна тогда. Если эффект вау, пожалуйста, как хочешь называй. Это уже вторичное все на самом деле. То есть, чтобы коты могли это слушать. Понимаешь, не засыпали там и так далее. И дело не в оформлении звуковом, а в самом исполнителе. Вот эти про это не говорят, да. Да. Ну вот он понял тебя. Это уже ваше дело. Я тебе говорю, это как бы я как исполнитель, например, как музыкант. Мне обидно, что я без берлоги, то есть ничего, понимаешь, да. И мне даже деньги не стремают, да, понимает он тебя, да. Вот видишь, вот только лишь за наим. То есть если ты, да, понимаешь, там, законно, он, да. Ну, да. За наим, да. Но это все равно, да, может быть и так, но это все временно. То есть их надо, то есть как бы верно, честность, правда. Работать надо выработать. Да. И опять есть начинаю. Нифига, фибра. Ванька Горшок, что ли, или как это? Да. Яков.
I'm not a completionist here, guys. What's even worse, though, is when you pay for these low-quality leads, you're working them, spending time, energy, and money to keep them in just to realize that they are complete crap. I've got a solution for you. What if I told you that you can target the exact person that you're looking for, the dream client that you're chasing day to day? What if they instead found you right here on social media through Facebook and Instagram ads? You don't believe me, huh? Okay, but what if I told you?
So, I'm just gonna get these. Oh yes, I love breaking pots. Okay, I don't. Hey guys, my name is Thomas Bresh. I'm the creator of a game called Pinstripe. I'm also working on a game called Once Upon a Coma. I've been making games for 10 years, and in those 10 years I've been running my own game studio, paying the mortgage, paying the company's bills, paying for my family, my wife and daughter and my dog. I've been doing all this with game development. It's my job. I'm an indie game developer. It's the best job on earth, and I had no idea how to start an indie game studio. And I think the worst thing was I had no idea how easy and possible it actually was.
Значит, не надо ее говорить было, все, да. О себе он так думал просто, да.
Да-да-да, мы настроили на вас рекламу. Все знают, что юристы хорошо зарабатывают. Особенно хорошие юристы и особенно юридические компании, в которых работают хорошие юристы. Если вы хотите 10, 15, 20, 50 или 100 договоров в месяц по банкротству с чеком 150, 160, а иногда и 180 и 200 тысяч рублей, то вам нужно перейти на нашу платформу и вот на этом сайте оставить заявку. Здесь или здесь будет кнопка. Переходите, оставляйте email, вы получаете все, что нужно, а лучше дальнейшую заявку, все, что нужно для того, чтобы получить сотни обращений от клиентов в день.
Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Thomas Bresh and I make indie games for a living. Okay, so you launch your game and the next day $100,000 slams into your bank account. That's a huge, I don't know, down payment for your house, or maybe you can buy a brand new Ford Bronco. Ooh, that sounds amazing. Or better yet, maybe you could put it in the stock market, because apparently the stock market loves chaos. I don't know what's going on in 2020, but that's what's happening. But guys, not so fast here. Remember, you need to pay taxes. So how much taxes do you actually have to pay? It's kind of confusing, right? And what about legal liability? Are you so sure that you're not going to get, I don't know, sued from maybe a customer who played your game? There's a lot of questions in the air, and in the wonderful world of game dev and entrepreneurship, you may find yourself feeling completely lost when it comes to the legal mumbo-jumbo of starting a business. Guys, I get this, I really do. Without my CPA dad growing up, I'm not sure I would have even known exactly how to start an indie game studio. In this video, guys, I'm going to be the dad that you never had, right? I'm going to tell you all of the wonderful things about limited liability companies, taxes, and, I don't know, the corporate veil. All of this.
Вот такая музыка, вот такое исполнение, оно для ценителей. Я это так понимаю. То есть оно не для человека. Вот послушай эту музыку, да? То есть, да, ну да, да, то есть как бы она просто проходняк. Ты даже не, да, понимаешь, она это, да. Как бы трэш, просто, да. Не наплевать, не наплевать. Ну, я предвзятым уже смотрел. Ты сможешь такой, вот ребенку 7-летнему, можешь этого, чтобы ему интересно было?
Первое и самое главное правило.
Да, понимаю. Чтобы он, ну, да.
Сотрудники для тех, кто развивает бизнес. Для тех, кому важна скорость найма. Для тех, кто ценит простоту и прозрачность подбора.
Я уже смотрел.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Coding. If you're making a platformer, you've got to get your main character feeling good. Because sloppy physics, unresponsive controls, floaty jumps and imprecise movement are completely toxic in platformer design. So it's vitally important you get this stuff right. And if you wanted a character to learn from, you could are completely toxic. Controls feeling good. Because sloppy physics, unresponsive controls, floaty jumps and imprecise movement are completely toxic in platformer design. so it's vitally important you get this stuff right. And if you wanted a character to learn from, you could do a lot worse than looking at Madeline, a 20-something wannabe mountain climber and protagonist of 2018's award-winning platformer, Celeste. Her controls are tight, precise, and responsive. You can put her exactly where you want and ping from platform to platform with fluidity and accuracy. And the game not only works at a super casual level, but it even holds up when you delve deep into Celeste's toughest challenges. So how, exactly, is this achieved? Well, to figure it out, I went on a bit of a journey. I pulled apart the game's code, I went frame by frame on Madeline's animation. I chatted to Celeste speedrunners, and I spoke to a couple people who know the game better than anyone else.
I'm Matt Thorson, director, co-creator of Celeste. Yeah, I'm Noel Berry, programmer and co-creator on Celeste.
And so, after all that, here's what I learned about the killer controls of Celeste. So let's go back to the very beginning and look at Madeline's most basic move, her run. A character's run can be split into 3 parts: acceleration, top speed, and deceleration. As in, once you start moving the stick, how long does it take the hero to get up to top speed? And how long does it take to stop when you let go? Getting these 2 curves right is especially important. Keep them short and the character will feel stiff and robotic, like in Mega Man 11. Make them long and the character will feel heavy and lumbering to set off, like in Super Meat Boy, and slippy and uncontrollable to stop, like in Super Mario Bros. 3. That game generally feels great to play, but Mario does feel like he's running on ice at times. In Celeste, Madeline has ultra-short acceleration and deceleration curves. It takes her about 6 frames to get to full speed, which happens roughly 4 times faster than Super Meat Boy. And she comes to a stop in just 3 frames, about 9 times faster than Mario in New Super Mario Bros. U. Those digits are just high enough to make Madeline feel human and to stop you from being able to do huge standing jumps, but short enough that she almost instantly does what you tell her to do. You're very rarely going to slip off the edge of the platform in this game. Her top speed is relatively low too, and unlike Mario and Meat Boy, there's no run button to get even more speed. I think this is just fast enough to feel fluid, but slow enough that you feel in total control at all times. We can do a similar process with the jump. First, we calculate the character's jump height by looking at how high they can jump compared to their own body size. So in New Super Mario Bros. U, Mario can jump to a point that's 4 times his own height, while Meat Boy can jump massively high to about 6 times his own height. And then we can look at each character's jump curve, noting the climb, hang time, and fall. This also gives us a total jump time. So Meat Boy has a tall and lengthy jump, making the character feel a bit floaty. Yanni from Unravel, on the other hand, has a really short jump and not much hang time, making this woolly ragdoll feel surprisingly heavy and leaden. Madeline, again, sticks to the short end of the spectrum. She goes up and down very fast, but with quite a lot of hang time so you can line up your landing. And she can jump to about 3 times her own height, giving her one of the shortest jumps around. Just like her run, these numbers are enough to make her feel bouncy and animated, but as far from floaty as you can get. There's more that makes Madeline's basic movement feel good, of course. There's the fact that she can change direction very quickly with no skidding, and how she has massive amounts of air friction, which means if you stop moving the stick in mid-air, she'll almost instantly fall straight down. That makes it easier to land precisely where you want to. And then there's the more fundamental design of the game's camera. Celeste is a zoomed-out game where, at times, the entire room is framed by a static viewpoint. This means that the screen isn't flipping out all over the place, which makes it easier to be precise with your runs and jump down. That makes it easier to land with skidding. And how she has massive amounts of air friction, which means if you stop moving the stick in mid-air, she'll almost instantly fall straight down. That makes it easier to land precisely where you want to. And then there's the more fundamental design of the game's camera. Celeste is a zoomed out game where at times the entire room is framed by a static viewpoint. This means that the screen isn't flipping out all over the place, which makes it easier to be precise with your runs and jumps. If Madeline is the only thing moving, it's easier to put her where you want to. The devs did have to compromise on detail for the characters and environments, but I think it was worth it. Now, Madeline's movement is entirely hard-coded and written in Visual Studio with the help of Microsoft's XNA framework. So the devs didn't use the built-in gravity or physics systems you sometimes find in game engines like Unity and GameMaker, as they preferred to have precise control over the player's input. So I asked Matt and Noel how they came to these numbers for Madeline's movement.
A lot of it was intuitive. A lot of it was just from making a lot of platformers. You get to get a sense of what you want a platformer to feel like and what works. And a lot of it's just experimentation, right? Like trying things and then getting people to play test it and seeing how it feels and watching them and seeing like, oh, that did not work as intended, so this needs to be toned down or this needs, to be better. Yeah, and it changed a lot through development too. Lots of little change, even big changes. And it, like in regards to like how the pacing feels, like when you're platforming, like when should you be stopping and when should you be like more flowing, like the mechanics change to kind of like make that all feel better.
So those are the basics, but there's way more to Madeline in the form of 2 extra moves you can use when scaling the mountain. One is the climb. Hold the trigger and Madeline will snap to a wall, and then can climb up it and bounce off for a springy wall jump. Unlike Meat Boy, who slides up walls uncontrollably, Madeline sticks to surfaces like glue. Climbing is dictated by a stamina system. Madeline's got 110 stamina points, though that's not shown to the player, and they depreciate at different rates depending on whether you're holding still, climbing, or doing a climb jump. The other move is the dash. Hit the dash button and Madeline will fire off into the direction you're holding. She can only dash once in mid-air, elegantly represented by her hair turning blue, so you'll either need to touch the ground or grab a crystal to replenish your stock. The dash does take control away from you because Madeline fires in one direction at max speed, but that's only for the first 0.15 seconds of the move. From there, she slows down and you're given control back, meaning you can cancel the momentum of the dash to stop yourself flinging into spikes. This gives the move more nuance and expressiveness compared to the same, more static move in Celeste's Pico 8 precursor. With these 3 mechanics, the jump, Pico 8 precursor, compared to the same, more static move in Celeste's Pico 8 precursor. With these 3 mechanics, the jump, the climb, and the dash, Celeste becomes a rapid-fire resource management puzzle of managing vertical space and picking when and where to execute different moves. A jump here, a dash there, onto the wall, then back off to regain stamina and replenish your dash before jetting off again. Each move has its own feel, speed, and level of control, giving the game an exciting, ever-changing pace. All part of the developer's plan, as it turns out.
Like a lot of problems in Celeste can be solved in multiple ways. Like you could either dash or you could climb. And then, there's some that you can only use one or the other. You have to use both in different combinations, but the dash was always supposed to be sort of the more chaotic option where it's kind of harder to control, whereas the climb is more methodical and like you have more precise control of it.
It's not just the numbers that make Madeline's moveset feel so good. Art, animation, and sound effects help sell the feeling too, like the squash and squeeze on her jump, which really emphasizes the movement in her body. The way tiny dust particles kick up and the controller rumbles when you hit the ground to sell the impact. The 4-frame pause and microscopic screen shake whenever you dash, which makes the jolting movement feel even more heightened. And the trail of shadows and the blazing white contrail, which emphasize the speed and direction. Celeste isn't a bonkers Vlambeer-style juice fest, but these subtle and short-lived effects do a lot of heavy lifting in making the game feel better and giving feedback to your inputs and actions. While Celeste is a very hard game at times, and gets even harder if you go for the strawberries and cassette tapes and B-side levels and so on, the developers are actually extremely generous to the player, with an untold number of hacks and special cases in the code that make the game way less punishing. The most famous, perhaps, is the way you can jump a few frames after leaving a platform and still spring into the air. This is called Coyote Time, named after the bits in Looney Still spring into the air. Jump a few frames after leaving a platform and still spring into the air. This is called Coyote Time, named after the bits in Looney Tunes cartoons where characters run off platforms and keep sprinting in midair. But there are loads of others hidden in the code. Dashing into a corner won't bonk you into oblivion, but you'll merely sail around the edge of the platform. Spikes have a small hitbox, so you won't die if you touch the very tip. These traffic light blocks will still grant a hitbox, so you won't die if you touch the very tip. These traffic light blocks will still grant you momentum, even if you're a little late on the button press. These traffic light blocks will still grant you momentum, even if you're a little late on the button press. If you do a climb jump, but quickly push away from the wall, the game switches to a wall jump and refunds the stamina. And if you jump on the wall, the game switches to a wall jump and refunds the stamina. And if you jump just before touching the ground, the game will remember that and execute the command when you land.
Because it feels bad if you like press jump, like the frame before you touch the ground and touch the ground is like nothing. Like you want to feel like, no, I pressed the jump button, I was like right there. Yeah. It just feels like the game messed up. It feels like the game missed your input or something, like it got eaten. And you don't want that. You want to feel like you're in control of your character and it's doing what you want it to do. Yeah. And then when you mess up, it's more on the player figuring out like how do I, solve this problem and execute it better, not like, oh, I was one frame off and it just like the game just killed me.
Yeah, it's like working on the player's intent rather than like making a precise simulation of like pressing buttons at the correct time.
And the cool thing too about that is like for actually really pro players, people who get really really good at it, it does come down to those frames. Like even if you say like, oh, like you get 3 frames off of a ledge and you can still jump, but then for a normal player that just like it just makes the game feel better. But then for pro players who actually are trying to get through a level like super fast or like trying to execute something perfectly, then they actually get down to the frames of like, no, I have 3 extra frames, so I can use those to like get across this gap I'm not supposed to get across, or like do this thing faster. Yeah. So you still get that kind of like frame perfect play that's possible, but then for casual players it makes it a lot like just feels better.
It's a good point, and boy have players found ways to get the most out of the game's movement code. I asked TGH, the world's top-ranking Celeste speedrunner, to explain some of the advanced techniques he uses to turn the game's toughest stages into graceful, effortless dances. First, there's the dash cancel, where a forward dash can be cancelled at the last second and turned into a massive jump that flings you through the air with all the momentum of the dash. Do this while crouching and you'll get the hyperdash, which is a lower but faster jump. You can extend these 2 moves by separating the dash and jump inputs slightly more, so Madeline regains her dash in midair. And for even more speed, says TGH, gains her dash in midair. Separating the dash and jump inputs slightly more, so Madeline regains her dash in midair. And for even more speed, says TGH, crouching and you'll get the hyperdash, which is a lower but faster jump. You can extend these 2 moves by separating the dash and jump inputs slightly more, so Madeline regains her dash in midair. And for even more speed, says TGH, after extending a hyperdash, you can dash diagonally down forward to chain momentum, and in some cases you can gain ludicrous speed. This is known as an ultra dash. You can also dash cancel upward along. This is known as an ultra dash. You can also dash in ludicrous speed. Down forward to chain momentum, and in some cases you can gain ludicrous speed. This is known as an ultra dash. You can also dash cancel upward along a wall for boosted height and vertical speed, which is called an up hyper or wall bounce. There are loads of other techniques too, and TGH says it's amazing just how fluidly all of these techniques come together and work so well with the level design. That's likely because almost all of them are actually intended by the developers, and some are even taught to you in the game. Not that I can actually perform them, mind you. It was important to Matt and Noel that Madeline's movement felt great, even if you don't have tricky, well-designed levels to explore. After all, this was one of the key suggestions they had when I asked for tips they might give to someone making their own platformer character. And have tricky, well-designed levels to explore. After all, this was one of the key suggestions they had when I asked for tips they might give to someone making their own platformer character.
And just make sure the moment to moment feels good, so that like when someone was just sitting there with a controller and the room could be empty, but they can move their character around, make like that feel good. Like,
yeah,
that feels
with
fun.
no goals or anything, just make sure it's fun to be that character.
Yeah.
Like I remember playing Mario Sunshine and just running around Delfino Plaza
Yeah.
for hours because it was just fun.
You just like can flip off stuff and all these things, like just the player itself can do all these cool like interactive things that just feel fun.
But making levels and adding in new mechanics like pinball bumpers, trampoline clouds, moving blocks, pelting wind, and kamikaze hotel owners can actually force you to go back to the movement code and change how things work.
I mean, like, we decided early on what we wanted Madeline to be able to do, but the details of, like, the numbers definitely changed, and then the levels also changed, you know, in tandem with that. So, yeah, you basically just, like, get the player character to where it feels all right. You know it's not perfect. You know you have to do testing and stuff, but you need levels to test, too. So you know, make a bunch of levels, and then you test, and then you find out, oh, the player character has to change, and then you have to change 20 levels, and then you have to, you know, like, let different parts change other parts of the game and let it slowly reveal what it wants to be.
And you have to, I think, you just have to be willing to throw away stuff sometimes too. Like this just, you know, this is a cool idea, it's a cool direction, but it wasn't working. It's like progressing what the game is, because you're learning about what the game actually is, and you're figuring things out. So even though you're throwing work away, it's like a learning experience that like ultimately makes the game better.
Yeah, it's like, it's still work that goes toward completing the game, even if it doesn't manifest as content in the game, right? It becomes part of your knowledge that you use to make the rest of the content.
Now, Celeste shows a great way to do very tight and responsive controls, but that's just one way to do a platformer. Tweak those curves and you can get very different results, like the realistic animation of Playdead's Inside, or the intense air control of N+, or Sonic games, which are all about building and maintaining momentum, so it's suitable that Sonic has a ridiculously long acceleration curve and likewise struggles to come to a complete stop. Still, I think Madeline's a really good place to start when thinking about platformer character design. Matt and Noel's work shows the importance of getting